What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. I'm back once again with a brand new video. As today, we're going to be sitting down and going through a James Gunn interview that IGN on their YouTube page just dropped as of today. This is, in fact, recording on Monday evening for you guys. James Gunn is in the process of doing a little bit of a press tour, if you will. He's got a little show coming out, an animated show you may have heard called Creature Commandos. I think it's set to go ahead and drop like December 5th or something like that. So in a couple of weeks, I think we get ourselves a 2-episode premiere. We will be reviewing Creature Commandos for you guys on a weekly basis here at APlus Hero Report, so certainly look forward to that. But he's making rounds, and in this particular IG interview, he not only talks a little bit about the coming together of Creature Commandos, but also gives us a tease in regards to what to look forward to for the rest of the DC studios, how that came aboard, how that came together, to certainly say the least, along with some Lanterns, Superman, maybe even some Supergirl talk in here too. So we'll see. It's about maybe 15, 18 minutes long, so it's rather lengthy. So sit back, relax, enjoy yourself. If you do want another James Gunn interview to check out, I think Brandon Davis formerly from comicbook.com, he's got his own YouTube channel now. He too just dropped a James Gunn Creature Commandos interview with some of the cast members. So certainly go ahead and check that out for yourself. But again, this is from the IG interview with James Gunn discussing Creature Commandos and the rest of the DC studios. So let's sit back, relax, and enjoy. And I may be pausing from time to time in regards to give my thoughts and opinions on some of the things that he's currently talking about here. But let's go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, I'm really worried about alienating the Nazi audience. Like that's.
Oh, wow, we came out of the gate swinging with Nazis.
There was a lot of. We thought we would take a stand against Nazism.
As we should.
Prisoners.
That's one way to start off an interview, right?
These assholes aren't human.
Welcome to IGN's roundtable discussion with the creators of Creature Commandos, the first entry in the new DC universe. James Dean, thanks so much for taking the time to talk.
Oh, I thought his name was James Dean, but he was James and Dean.
What made you decide to go animated with the debut of the new DCU?
You know, I don't remember. I really don't remember. I think I just was like, I kind of wanted to do something animated. And I wanted to do something with Creature Commandos for a while, and so I just started writing this thing. And we didn't have a deal, didn't have anything. I just wrote 7 episodes of this TV show, and was into it. And so then, you know, I luckily had a really great CEO in DC Studios which was me, and I greenlit my own show.
Yeah, yeah. How does that work, actually?
You know, first off, I find it hilarious, and I think it's actually pretty cool that James Gunn literally spends his writing stuff, like things that haven't even been greenlit, things that he hasn't even like told people about, hasn't taken it up the chain. He's just literally writing a Creature Commandos show, and maybe eventually, like, maybe he'll pass it along to somebody and be like, "Hey, do you want to make the show?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's make the show." But this time, it's himself, and so it is interesting that Creature Commandos was kind of coming together before DC Studios for him was kind of even a thing and kind of taking over. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool that he had that kind of in his back pocket the whole time.
That's
really
how it
works. He's got 100% green light.
I do. I know. It's really
Wow, that's incredible.
So, how did you decide on the roster for this particular incarnation of the Commandos?
I really don't remember. I mean,
somebody check this man's coffee. It's got to be spiked.
Comics, you know, and I kind of went through and I just kind of picked out, you know, who everybody was. And I wanted to have a skeleton guy in there. And so, like, my favorite of all the skeleton guys, and there are many skeleton guys.
There are,
is Dr. Phosphorus. And I thought he would be the most fun. And so he ended up in there.
Ooh.
Shish kebab.
Weasel. Well, Weasel, I mean, the whole thing is a project to, like, really bring Weasel to the masses.
Right.
Oh, man, and you really do it, too.
He does. That's spoilers. It's surprising, but he's really, like, he's got layers people don't know.
It's kind of like, who's the last character you would have expected to be ported over from the Suicide Squad?
He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know, we got him to, I think he's agreed to do this.
So, Dean, how did you guys decide on the animation?
First off, I really love James Gunn's just wealth of knowledge of these characters. Like, that has read a ton of comic books kind of growing up and go back and forth to Marvel and DC all the time. I never even heard of Creature Commandos. Like, I feel like James Gunn is just this guy that just has deep cuts, that just knows deep cuts. I mean, the fact that out of all the skeleton like characters out there, his choice is like Dr. Phosphorus, right? Like, what is that, like a D level, E level character type of thing? Or at least just because of the fact that I personally don't really know him, but I really appreciate him not only having the knowledge, but not being afraid to take these characters like similar to what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, and probably really trying to do his part and make them household names. I mean, he jokes around about the idea like, yeah, it's actually like a secret of ours to push Weasley Weasel into the masses of people. Look, Weasel might become like the next Rocket Raccoon, for some of us, sort of thing. So I really appreciate just the effort he's putting behind this.
Particular animation style, because obviously there's been sort of, I don't want to say house style, but there's been a certain approach to DC projects.
We wanted to set it apart from, like I
Yeah,
do, Harley
the
Quinn
art
and
style
Batman,
can
and
get
that's its own
feel
style.
the same.
But we wanted to give it a more sort of European flair, and a little darker in tone, and it has, I think, a little more reality to it, a little more groundedness. And so we developed the style really for that. And Warner Brothers Animation, they did a lot of work. A guy named Rick Morales was in charge of that stuff, and we basically devised the style,
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, it's great. I really love it.
Yeah, I
So
do dig the
what's
style.
canon and what's not these days in the DCU? Because obviously,
Ooh,
like we
yeah,
have
what is
Weasel,
canon?
we have aspects of
Yeah.
the Suicide Squad and
Yeah.
Peacemaker as well.
Yeah.
Like, what is your thinking in terms of how that works?
Real simply, nothing for sure is canon unless you see it in Creature Commandos forward for the DCU.
Okay.
Now, in Creature Commandos, you'll hear them talk about things that happened in Suicide Squad or Peacemaker. Well, then those things automatically become canon. The truth is, almost all of Peacemaker is canon, with the exception of Justice League Appearance,
You're late, you dickheads.
which
First off, I love that they bleep out effing but leave dickheads in there. Okay. But that gives us a little bit of clarity in regards to just canonical everything in Peacemaker, with the exception of the Justice League. Everything from Creature Commandos forward, with the exception of any references to things that might have happened sort of in past movies. Then those particular moments are canonical.
we will, kind of deal with in the next season of Peacemaker.
Oh, okay.
But really, to be totally sure, everything that's purely canon is Creature Commandos through Superman, through Lanterns, Supergirl, Peacemaker season 2.
I mean, does canon matter anymore anyway?
Well, one of the weird things to me is that none of this is real. It may be alarming to people, but none of it is real. It's all just stories that we're telling about characters, and hopefully there's
Right.
authenticity and truth to those stories because we care about those stories. The characters, the actors, the performers, the animators, they all care about these stories. But it's not real.
Right.
So what's canon can really be whatever you want to be canon. If you want to pretend that, Greedo and Batman go on, adventures together, you can pretend Greedo and Batman go on adventures together. That can be your canon. I know that is your
You just stole my fan fiction. But, all right, so speaking of, this show involves our heroes kicking the crap out of a bunch of incels, and then they also go to a Knights of Columbus and kill a bunch of Nazis. I mean, not to spoil too much, but are you worried about alienating a part of your audience?
Yeah, I'm really worried about alienating the Nazi audience. Like that's
Yo.
that's been we had a
Yo, I love the fact that they just took a shot at trolls. Like, and you know what's gonna be crazy? They're gonna be people that are literally gonna be comment. Like, people that literally like find this interview, there are gonna be some people that get offended. And look, if you're offended by these comments, you should do some introspective work. But it is funny that he is leaning into trolling, like just that toxic side of the fandom at times. Not saying it's not everybody. It's definitely not everybody. But to just kind of poke fun at them, man. I absolutely love it.
Talked about this.
There is a lot of.
We thought
Can't
we
offend
would
the
take a stand
Nazis.
against Nazism.
Well, you know, I don't know if it's too soon, but we did think that we would do that. We were like, let's be courageous.
What ballsy, heroic people we are that we took a stand against Nazis. That is, so few people are afraid to do that these days.
It's been oh so long since G.I. Robot has sent Nazis back to hell.
How much leeway did you guys feel that you had in adapting the characters? Like I don't know the Creature Commandos.
Is Alan Tudyk
comics
doing
really,
two
but,
voices?
like Frankenstein, it feels a lot like the Frankenstein from the book.
He's a lot
Right.
like Frankenstein from the book. Yeah.
So what was your guiding principle in that regard? Because obviously he's a literary character, but then some of these are comic book characters.
Well, I mean, Frankenstein's in the comics, and you know, this Frankenstein is sort of a combination of actually Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Frankenstein from the DC Comics.
Wow,
and,
okay.
You know, our Frankenstein.
Nice amalgamation there.
And David Harbour's performance.
And David Harbour, who's like incredible in the role. He's just one of our favorites. You know, I will start with what can be true for this story. And the way I approach, you know, the DC universe is one of the things I love about DC is that there are all these different manifestations of these same characters in different realities, different canons, really, from, you know, the mainstream universe's Batman to Frank Miller's Batman to, you know, the Long Halloween's Batman.
Those different iterations.
To Absolute Batman. They're all different manifestations of this same character that we get to see from different angles and different ways, you know, and then all the different movie Batman. And so this is really just taking characters in the DCU and seeing all of these characters we love from different, you know, angles. And some of them, you know, are very, very, very true to what we have experienced in comic books, and some of them we changed a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I think Frankenstein he's a really surprising character in some ways because I guess the version of him in Mary Shelley's book is he's a bit of a sociopath, right? And this one does seem really to track with that, and yet he's one of our hero characters, I guess. So
Is he?
I don't know. I haven't seen the whole series yet.
He's a monster and he does monstrous things.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I guess he's a hero in that, in the same way that, you know, the Godfather's a hero in The Godfather.
Yeah. I mean, he's the protagonist. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's not a great.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
He's not a great guy.
He's not a great
Frankenstein, and he is
No.
a stalker piece of shit. Like that's,
Yes.
you know, he is a stalker.
Yeah, he's kind of irredeemable.
What was the thinking in terms of launching?
Well, that is interesting to me. Again, I'm not familiar with the Frankenstein character from the comic books whatsoever. So the idea of having the black comics and from the actual Mary Shelley Frankenstein, I do find pretty intriguing. And yeah, really like it is interesting how the interviewer questioned that in the sense of, you know, him being a hero. And I think we automatically just assume that these characters, because they're a team and whatever the case may be, that there's going to be heroic elements to some of the things that they do. But you know, I personally, like, I don't know how many episodes this interview is. I got the opportunity to see first, but I am intrigued to find out like their roles in the team. You know, is there any sense, like, are any of these heroes in a sense trying to be heroic, or are they just in their own sense just naturally flawed and evil, and you're trying to kind of make them into a team sort of thing, you know what I mean? So who has good intentions, who naturally doesn't? And it feels like maybe Frankenstein definitely is not one of those people. So I don't know, but leave it up to someone like James Gunn to add a ton of layers to these characters.
In the universe, like, already lived in, like, it's clear, like all the superheroes are already out there, like, it's not an origin story kind of thing. What was your thinking for that?
For that, with the DCU, I think it's really about, I didn't want to have to create a universe where every single story is an origin story. I didn't want to everybody knows where, like, you know, kids in small villages and very, you know, third world countries know that Superman is a guy from an alien from another planet who was sent here on a rocket ship and was raised raised by farmers. That is something that people know. Everybody knows Batman's parents were killed outside of a theater, and you know, there was a string of pearls that fell on the ground. They mainly know that fact.
Yeah.
But so I think it was about not retelling, but it's about creating a world, a universe, in a way like the Game of Thrones universe or the Star Wars universe, where there's these
Where they
fantastical elements.
established
It's a
lore.
magical realist
Yeah.
world where superheroes exist and have existed for a while.
Right.
Some are metahumans, some are costume vigilantes. And so we don't need to see the single story
Man,
of
I
every
love
single
that.
person and where they came from. It's about being in that situation now, and it's something that I don't think we've seen before, really.
Yeah, yeah, because even if when you look at something like the MCU, we start off with a bunch of origin stories, and a lot of those characters weren't necessarily super mainstream for a lot of people. So the idea of having to push forward origin stories for Thor, for Iron Man, for Captain America, and have that be a launching point to eventually come into a world that, as we get into further flashbacks, we learn about some Shield agents, like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and past sort of heroics of theirs, but it wasn't really a world populated with heroes. It's sort of like the dawning of the superhero age in the MCU. So for us to kind of be thrusted into a world of superheroes, and I love his connections of like Game of Thrones, of Star Wars, right? This sort of established lore and established universe that we are just kind of thrusted into, and we maneuver around everything that's kind of already been established and built upon. And I find that really intriguing, especially when it comes to the superheroes. I mean, the idea that Superman is not going to be an origin film, the fact that is Brave and the Bold is going to be a Bat Family film, right? Like all these characters are already kind of established, and to kind of see how metahumans and vigilantes and superheroes in general affect that world, and how just the general population views them and their impact on politics and just the world in general, to be thrusted into that, I think it's going to be really invigorating, and just have a fulfillment of ours of just like, man, this is like this world is so full, you know what I mean? And I kind of
Yeah.
I
I'm
see
saving up to buy a house, so I want to avoid big medical bills.
Yeah, it's true. So do you know in your head where like the age of superheroes began? Like was there a Creature Commandos back in like World War II, the way there was in the
I'm
comics
sure
or
James
movies?
Gunn's got a
Well,
lore.
I
Do you have
don't
a
know if there was a
Bible?
Creature Commandos back, but I do know there's been metahumans and superheroes for a long time. But as time has gone on, and I don't think this is giving away too much. There's more of them today than there used to be,
Okay.
and they're more of an issue today than they used to be.
Mm,
So this doesn't really have.
ooh, there's more metahumans. Is it, or did he just simplify meta?
There's been metahumans and superheroes for a long.
There's been metahumans and superheroes for a long time. There's just more of them now, and it's kind of becoming a problem. That's like the tagline, or like the premise of like the Kingdom Come storyline, where you got like generations and generations of heroes, in the sense of they're maybe not quite what they used to be. You know what I mean? Like, man, that's kind of fascinating. I don't think he gave too much away, but I think he definitely fans of Kingdom Come something to really like connect further to.
Well, I don't know if there was a Creature Commandos back, but I do know there's
Wow.
been metahumans and superheroes for a long time. But as time has gone on, and I don't think this is giving away too much. There's more of them today than there used to be,
Okay.
and they're more of an issue today than they used to be. So this doesn't really have anything to do with Creature Commandos, but it is, kind of where we find ourselves.
Okay.
Getting the super.
Okay. And I
I'm sorry, but I gotta harp on that. I love that concept of the idea that it's becoming a problem, that there's more of them than, and I got to imagine that that has an impact on the world and how people view heroes at that time. And so there is a part of me that can really understand maybe Superman's sort of place in all of this. You know what I mean? Um, Superheroes becoming maybe more corporate entities, Maybe the concept of being a superhero isn't necessarily what being a superhero means anymore when you've got so many of them, right? Um, yeah, there's a lot that can go wrong in that scenario, and that's I find that interesting.
I suppose it gives you guys the room to like introduce familiar characters who maybe are never going to get their own project, but like no spoilers, but Creature Commandos, I definitely have noticed there's a here or there someone pops up,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah. No, we get to we see some major characters.
Some big characters, and as it goes forward, I think we'll see lots of characters cycle through in the Creature Commandos.
right,
Yeah.
without the need to explain it away either, like not explain it away, explain this is who this person is or whatever. It's like trusting the audience a little bit in some ways.
Yes.
Okay. The Creature Commandos.
Fascinating.
It's
I love
definitely
the
an
idea of
adult
big cameos.
show, I suppose, in terms of sex and violence. How much was that like your mission statement going in? Like, we're going to do an R-rated cartoon, or I mean, obviously,
It
like,
wasn't.
I don't think we went into it really thinking about it as an R-rated cartoon or anything like that. It really was just a story that we wanted to tell as sort of honestly as we could. And that
Love that.
involved a little bit of, violence and a little bit of sex. But, we weren't shooting for any particular level on that.
Yeah, and because it is animated, it doesn't seem quite.
Yes.
It doesn't seem as sexual or as gory as you would if it was in live action. It doesn't, at least to me, it doesn't. But I didn't set out. I just kind of wrote the story that I liked.
Yeah.
And then these guys adapted it in a way, but I didn't even think it was necessarily, what one would call adult animation, which is what it's called now.
Yeah.
When I wrote it, it's just kind of how it ended up being.
Right. We were just on the production side, just trying to be sort of faithful to the scripts that James wrote, and to try not to be too excessive and keep it in the world of the story, so it didn't take you out.
and what was that process like in terms of like, so for you wrote the 7 episodes, and then like you kind of take it and run with it. Was there a moment where it's like, oh, like this Nazi's like pushing his guts back in his stomach for you, like, maybe that's too much, or like, did
You think I'm going to say too much?
no, but what's that?
Yeah, I mean, James obviously saw every frame of the thing, and he had very specific notes throughout, but I don't ever recall there being a question of like too much violence or
Never too much.
Yeah.
Give me more guts.
Yeah.
Maybe more Nazi guts.
No, I never said more. I never said more or less. It was just like, it just seemed like it was always what was appropriate. It really wasn't about just being shocking ever.
And that honestly was, as we were working on it, we were trying to never be exploitive or anything like that. It was just, we were just trying to service the story.
So how important?
I do love that aspect of just being honest, being honest with the story, just telling the story that you want to tell. And if it happens to land in that kind of animation or rated R, you just kind of go with it. You don't cheapen it, you don't add to it. The story is the story. And I really respect that. I really love his point of it being honest above all, right? Like you don't want to you don't want to take away or add to it. The story is certainly what it is, and staying true to that I think is really important just for any sort of filmmaker or writer in general.
Important was it to find, when you were casting the voice actors, how important was it to find actors who could also do live action versions? Because obviously we know Frank is going to be in Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a consideration across the board?
Yeah, it was always a consideration. I mean, we always wanted to have somebody that could potentially play the character in live action, and I think that of all, listen, there are some side characters, a couple big ones that are very minimal in the show, who are not going to probably be their voice actors,
Right.
who will probably not play that role.
Okay.
I know that's the case.
Okay.
But for the
Interesting.
main Creature Commandos, the for the main characters, the idea was always to have those characters played by those actors. Yeah.
I mean, from the start, that was always a consideration.
Okay.
That is interesting to me because he has always said the idea of like when we cast these characters, be able to have that ability to go back and forth between animated and live action if it calls upon it. So it does bear it does come it's framed to me in the sense of now when he is looking to do anything animation, he's looking for actors first, not necessarily voice actors. I can see how that might ruffle some feathers for sure, kind of taken away from those that specifically do voice acting work, um, that they may not necessarily be the first choice, right? You have to have that acting ability as well in order to do these animated roles now. But on the flip side of that, they keep teasing big cameos, big cameos. What are those big cameos, right? Like, is there a Superman cameo in here? Is it David Cordensweat? Is it not? Are there other big cameos in here that maybe don't have their own individual movie, or isn't lined up for anything big individual, despite them maybe being a big character? When he talks about that, it doesn't sound like those cameos have intentions of being played by those same voice actors. Like those roles look like they're going to the voice actors because of the fact that they may not have um live action roles somewhere down the line. If I'm reading if I'm listening to what he's saying correctly, was a little bit odd. Well, I guess maybe it wouldn't be too odd because at the end of the day, I think he probably had this story in mind before, like he said, before he even became maybe even the CEO of DC Studios. So he already had these characters included. So in that case, I can see why it's like we didn't cast for this character first. The character was sort of written first before all this kind of like a domino effect. You know what I mean? So, if it is like a Batman that pops up in this show for any particular reason, I don't think he had in mind like, oh, this person is going to be acting Batman at some point in time. So I don't know. It's interesting in regards to who he chooses to be a voice actor only, and then eventually go on to do live action.
Again, it's sort of an interesting way of going about it. It's not usually how it's done.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah. And I
definitely
mean,
not how it's done.
with some characters, it was a little more important. With Frank, it was really important because I knew that Frank was in Superman.
Right.
Rick Flag's in Superman.
see what you're
He's
saying,
in
yeah.
major role in
Because
Peacemaker season 2.
because these characters
so
may not
that
have
was a
bigger
character that
roles.
was
That's
gonna be
probably
connected
why
throughout, so I needed somebody to do.
he
Yeah.
just got voice.
So how
Okay.
did you wind up in the opening credits?
Dude, you tell me.
You know what?
I really, that was like a shock.
Well, James had a credit, and we were trying to figure out, like, well, we gave all the characters sort of little moments, animated moments in the credits, and we were like, well, James is kind of a character. We should give him something, and so we all got very excited about it, and we spent a lot of time sort of working on it. And how does he lean back in the chair? Like, what does he do?
It does.
And it was just I don't know. It was.
Aren't I writing on a typewriter?
Yeah, you're writing on a typewriter.
That's
and
not canon.
And then but then when you're done writing, you lean back in the chair and you got a whole and I don't know if you actually do that, but it seemed like
It's exactly like me.
exactly like you.
Like Slim, and he looks good.
You look fantastic.
Yeah,
in
he looks pretty good.
It's very good.
Yeah,
It's
I was surprised, and my ego was stroked, and then I was also like, "Oh my God, please don't let people think that I told them to animate."
You did not. I can tell you for the record, he didn't. And
Because some people
we
be
were
like, "There goes
thrilled,
James Gunn
to present it,
pushing
and
himself and
nervously we
including
presented it.
himself in the DC studios." I can hear it
The
already.
guy who greenlights his own projects.
I know.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
you
It's
gotta
like
do what you got to do.
fucking God complex here.
I could have mixed it. I didn't.
Is there a dream DC team or character that you guys would like to just overall like a different project you guys would love to do in animation for DC?
I mean, I have a billion, but I don't. Do you?
Well, yeah. There's
Pitch us.
a bunch I would I would love to do. I'm
Have you
interested in
greenlighted
doing
that?
a Queen of Fables animated
right, that's right.
project,
I
so
know about
I have real interest in that. I would love to continue to do stuff in the Harleyverse. There's a lot of characters I'd love to get into there. Yeah, there's a bunch. I'd love to do a Hitman comedy.
Yeah.
Garth Ennis's Hitman. I think that'd be
Nice.
great.
You have too many to name, I guess.
I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, there's
Everything.
There's tons of stuff.
Yeah. Is there going to be a season 2?
Well, we don't know if we can get it greenlit, but
We'll see.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, because what happens with the season 2 is like would you want to write it the whole thing again? That's a big undertaking.
That's the well. I think that Dean has done a lot with the characters and he can handle some of that. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think let's just take it one day at a time and see what happens. But I think we want to see the characters again.
We want to see the characters
in one format or another. You know, that could be other we could do. We should do the movie. So there's other ways of telling that story.
Creature Commandos live action movie.
Live action, animated movie. It could be a lot of different things.
Right. Okay.
And you're not doing anything, so
yeah, I'm not like just
you got nothing going on,
hanging out. Yeah.
What is the plan in terms of we have Superman, we have Creature Commandos, we have Superman, we have Supergirl. What is the next thing after that? Do you know?
Well, we have our TV projects. So we have it's Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker, Lanterns, Supergirl, and then some things people don't know.
So some things people don't know. I mean, like he's already given us sort of like a chapter 1 breakdown of Gods and Monsters as to what he has plans. There is a tease out there of Teen Titans having a writer, the same writer from Supergirl, perhaps. So maybe that certainly wasn't on his chapter 1, to certainly say the least. We still have like Paradise Lost out there, Brave and the Bold, Swamp Thing, Booster Gold, right? So they can definitely go on a lot of directions. But the idea that he's teasing some things that haven't been announced yet, I'm looking forward to seeing what that could potentially be if it's a Teen Titans that wasn't even on his schedule, to certainly say the least. So we'll see how that goes. But I do like the timeline that he's setting up so far in regards to release schedule, and if anything, I am fascinated in figuring out like how important is it that these projects release at the times that they do? Like Superman, I would assume if anything, Peacemaker season 2 probably has references to maybe what happened in Superman. And then from Peacemaker, he says Lanterns. I would assume that's the next sort of television series in the timeline that's gonna drop. And then after that, Supergirl. So like I'm curious if that's definitive or if he has that flexibility of moving movies and television series around where it doesn't necessarily affect the story as a whole, sort of thing. But I am fascinated in that order that he just dropped for us.
Lanterns is before Supergirl.
Well, we'll see.
Lanterns is before Supergirl.
They're around the same time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Lanterns is pretty hot right now.
Yeah, Lanterns. We're getting ready to go.
Yeah, I think they start production in January along with Supergirl. So I think from just I standpoint, the Lantern series I would think would be wrapped filming sooner than Supergirl certainly would. So I would think it just really depends on post production. So I can see the flexibility that James Gunn would certainly have there. I mean, he even throws it up that it may not necessarily be definitive in this particular moment, but I'm looking forward to all these projects to be quite frank with you.
They're around the same time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Lanterns is pretty hot right now.
Yeah, Lanterns. We're getting ready to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Can you tell, not to go too far straight from Creature Commandos, but can you just tell me about the casting of the two Lanterns in terms of the thinking behind those guys? Because like some people were like, oh, Kyle Chandler, he's too old to be Hal. And it's like,
wait a second. Comic book fans had an opinion on casting? What are you talking about? Listen, I mean, the truth is Chris and Tom and Damon wrote an amazing series, like an incredible series. I'm so excited for people to see this. It's very grounded, very believable, very real, the kind of things that you would never think that would be the truth about a Green Lanterns television series. And very human, adult, and wonderful. And the story that they wrote fit a couple of actors who were of these ages, and so that's who they cast. Those were their choices. I totally backed them up. I love them. Aaron Pierre is somebody who I've liked for a long time. The truth is, he was almost Adam Warlock.
wow,
he's a great actor.
That's crazy to me. That's great. First off, he is a great actor. I saw him in, was it Rebel Ridge on Netflix? Incredible in that film. Honestly, like the vibes of a Jon Stewart for sure. Excuse me. Excuse me. You know, when it comes to I'm really excited for Lanterns. I think his excitement for lanterns is very infectious when it comes to me. I can see the worry that some people might have when he says things like it's incredibly grounded. Um, it's kind of like the things that happen in the series are things that you wouldn't think would work kind of in this world of lanterns. Let me go back and remember exactly what he's saying here because
Truth
he's
about a Green Lantern's television. Very grounded,
very
very
grounded,
believable, very
very
real, the kind of
believable.
things that you would never think that would be the truth.
This to me, it feels very sort of character heavy. Um, does that mean like will we get fantastical like space or using their rings and the different constructs and stuff? Like, I have a feeling that it's one of those things that maybe it wouldn't surprise me if if it's one of those things that they save the budget for those big type of moments towards the end of the show, but really spend the rest of the show learning about these characters. Really giving us a true detective vibe, sort of mystery and style. I think the one thing that people forget to take away is that James Gunn has always mentioned that Lanterns is really going to be the launching point for the big overall story that's going to be happening for the DCU, right? It feels like Lanterns is a very important series in the sense that there's a moment, there's an event, there's a revelation or a mystery that's there that really opens up a bigger picture of something is taking place in this universe. Something is sort of unraveling around us, and it's going to have bigger implications that will be felt through the rest of the cinematic universe. And so, as fearful as some people might be in regards to his words of like, "Oh man, are we even gonna get to see them in their suits? Are we gonna get to see them use their powers?" I do think so. How often? Um, I think is probably going to be the question, but Damon Lindelof is an incredible writer. Tom King is an incredible writer. Chris Mundy, I think, was from Ozarks, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that series just got so much recognition. You put the three of their heads together. When he says it's an incredible story, I believe him, and story is always going to be king. And I still think we'll get our Green Lantern aspects, but when he says things like incredible things that you wouldn't think would work in a Lantern series, really works. He seems like he's the type of person that pushes story first among everything else. And he's got the actors that are going to push and deliver it over the top. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I do think this is going to be different than what people certainly expect, but not in a bad way.
About a Green Lantern's television series, and very human, adult, and wonderful. And the story that they wrote fit a couple of actors who were of these ages, and so that's who they cast. Those were their choices. I totally backed them up. I love them. Aaron Pierre is somebody who I've liked for a long time. The truth is, he was almost Adam Warlock.
Wow.
He's a great actor, and so I was really excited to see us, using him. And Kyle's just magnificent in the role. So I'm really excited for people to see
Man,
what those
I
guys
can't wait.
have come up with. But everything is to serve the story. The story is
Story.
always first. The scripts are always first. And we would never be making this show if Chris and the guys hadn't turned in wonderful, beautiful scripts.
Man, writers, take note. Filmmakers, movie creators, take note. Everything serves the story itself, and I love that. That's James Gunn's focus.
Sure. Okay. Well, on that note, thank you, James. Thank you, Gene. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk. And good luck with Creature Commandos and Lanterns and everything else that's coming.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Man, look, I gotta tell you, James Gunn, wrong in my eyes right now. I've really enjoyed a lot of his movies. I personally wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So do I think that this guy can certainly strike out? Yeah, absolutely. But outside of that, I've really been a big fan of James Gunn's work. He does bring, I think personally, a really great balance to movies and television series, drama. Like, I feel like he knows how to do it all and still, drama, focus on characters, have those really deep emotional moments, incredible story arcs, humor. I mean, my goodness, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special pulls at my heartstrings every freaking time I watch it. And that's hard to do. And I think James Gunn is just that capable. And I think he's proven himself from all his work that he's done with the MCU, a little of the stuff that he's already dabbled in pre DCEU also. And I just think he has a really good mind for this business. I'm glad that he doesn't have to have the main role that Kevin Feige does, where he's like producer and creative sort of CEO behind it, that he really just gets to focus on the creative side, and then has somebody else that handles the promotion and the money aspect of things, and paying for the actors and everything that they certainly need. And so I just think he's got a really good head on his shoulders. I think he's going to give us something fresh and dynamic. And I think the what the MCU was capable of doing within the first 3 phases, I think that DC has found that leadership in James Gunn and Peter Safran to replicate that. Now, look, what MCU did for the first 3 phases is truly cinematic history. I don't think it'll ever be duplicated or replicated. But can James Gunn come pretty damn close? Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think this is the time that we've been waiting for a long time to kind of see DC Studios on a level playing field with Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I do think that James Gunn is truly going to deliver here. And I think, again, the focus of story, doing everything that to push that story forward that's going to benefit the characters, and not I don't want to say confirming, but not pushing anything through until you have a final script, that one that is incredible and one that everybody's certainly on board with. And that gives me hope. That gives me hope that he's certainly doing the right things, because you can look at other franchises and cinematic universes that have recently stumbled, like the MCU that's trying to get their legs back under them, Star Wars that can't seem to find or keep a writer or a director. James Gunn seems to have learned from a lot of people's mistakes and failures, and refuses for that to happen under his watch. And I think that allows DC Studios to be in really good hands. But guys, look, at the end of the day, I want to know your thoughts. What did you think about this interview? What really jumped out at you that you want to go ahead and talk about? Let's talk about it in the comment section box below, guys. But that will do it for me here. I'll probably see you guys later on this week with other content throughout the week. And then, of course, on Sunday for APlus Hero Report. But until then, do me a big favor, as always. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it APlus. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.